Off top, Idaho. It's not a Native American word. It's completely fabricated by a con artist. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm Domonique Foxworth. That's Charlie Kravitz. And that surprisingly more handsome than I remember person is Kevin Clark with the fresh mustache that makes me a little uncomfortable.
You should be. What angle were the Idaho con artists working?
Whoa. We don't dig deep, man. We don't dig deep.
Is this like a Haagen-Dazs situation?
We don't dig deep. The point is to get your attention, and then you go do some research and learn about it. I'm not here to teach about that. I'm here to teach about sports.
This is Dominique's.
Okay.
Dominique reverse engineered the purpose of the off tops to remind us that we know nothing.
Oh, man, you ruined it. See, this is what you call a good teammate right here. Throw me under the bus. So, first of all, most important question. I normally throw to Charlie to do all the context and set up and ask questions, but I won't because you said I'm not funny. So, I will. That's true. The first question.
Do you think you're funny?
That's my off top.
Oh, yeah.
My off top is that Domonique Foxworth has never told a good joke.
I've never told a joke. I just take facts. Like, how's your face such a different color than your neck? What happened? Is that a?
It's the bad. It's
we make excuses.
Terrible.
We do
lighting.
it's lighting. It's lighting.
I mean, no, I am also, because I do 5 things in a row, I wear makeup.
Oh, gosh. Nothing's wrong with wearing makeup. Just get the right shade, baby. Go in there and ask the lady to get you the right shade.
It's usually the right shade. This is the folks at Seaport who they told me what shade to buy, and then the guy at the counter was like,
it's not funny.
Don't do that.
When someone takes your joke seriously, is obviously very hurt by the fact that
it wasn't a good joke. It was just an insult.
That was a wrong joke. Do you guys not have any male friends?
I'm not gonna. Am I supposed to lie and be like I have some sort of disease?
No,
that
would have been funny. That would have been funny.
That actually would have been very funny.
It would have made me awkward and been uncomfortable. That would have been the move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now is the time.
No, what you do back is you for you guys who don't have any male friends. What you do back is you're like, oh, okay, and then you make fun of me. That's how we bond.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Okay,
since you
let me teach you how to bond.
Us of not having friends. 2 of the 3 people here went on a boys' trip recently, and the third one wasn't invited. So who has friends?
Obviously, you guys have friends.
We're buddies.
You guys went. You're telling people about your boys' trip.
Yeah. By the way, Kevin, you know what's like funny? Dominique went on a diatribe once about how he has no friends, and then I got a text from Dominique's wife Ashley who said, "Don't worry, you and DeQuell are Dominique's friends."
You guys are my friends. I reconnected with some high school friends recently.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin is my friend. Steve's my friend. I got a lot of friends now.
There's a different Kevin in your life?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He played college basketball. He's like much more impressive than you. But not as handsome.
I have a lot of friends.
Yeah, I like your new hairstyle.
I have a lot of friends.
Oh, you want to cruise past the hairstyle jokes, huh?
No,
you just go to
the hairstyle is great.
No, I like it. It's new. It's less villainous is the other one.
I don't even know what I changed on the hair. The mustache just unlocked a bunch of different stuff. It's like the mustache is like when you draft a player and it's not a scheme fit, it's a scheme expansion.
Nice.
Like this mustache here has unlocked so many different things.
That's a bad mustache that doesn't work on many people, but it's working.
You look like you could be coaching Team Iceland in Mighty Ducks D2.
That's a good joke. It's a good joke. See, you know how to be friends.
See?
Nice job.
See?
Now tell Charlie what he looks like, and then we keep going. No? All right.
I don't.
Thurman Merman?
He's my friend.
Charlie, you look like super bad.
It's that too.
He
the
showed
same
up.
thing.
I will say
Same
this,
difference.
Dominique. He showed up at Pinehurst, and the first time I saw him, he was wearing a Pinehurst
I
sweater.
was wondering why I didn't get invited on the trip. Now I know.
He bought the Pinehurst sweater in the pro shop on the way to meet us, and then wore it the entire weekend.
That's right. Gotta get merched up.
Like, do you do that on all your trips, Charlie? Like, if you go to London, do you just like stop in the airport?
I went on a hiking trip in Hawaii and wore it.
Shirt.
I actually went on a hiking trip in Hawaii and wore an I Heart Hawaii t-shirt everywhere. And my fiance Carrie was like, "You're embarrassing me," and I was like, "No, it's part of the bit. I'm sticking with it."
Can you please wear that shirt next time you hear.
Do you think this endears yourself to the locals? Where they're like, oh, he's a tourist, but it's cool because he's wearing something you bought in the airport that says he likes where we are.
I do love Hawaii.
The shirt should just
I'm just
say,
earnest.
The shirt should just say, please rob me. I'm a tourist. That's all it like screams. It's like, come run a scam on me. I heart Hawaii. Oh,
it's a great shirt.
There are like 50 people that Charlie's run into on vacation and now have a social security number because they knew he was a mark.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
How many
God.
times you lost your identity? Every time you get back, it's like, ooh, Nolia's the best. You got a fresh New Orleans t-shirt?
27 bank accounts under his name in Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
Oh,
The mean streets of Pinehurst. Actually, yeah, I got to check that credit card statement.
All right, we can talk about stuff now.
I mean, I will say Kevin and I almost wore the same country club, Wingfoot Country Club hat. And it was a gift from a friend, but luckily Kevin had a backup country club hat that he could switch to.
I had a Pinehurst hat. I had a Pinehurst hat. I bought it. I went full Kravitz and bought a hat of the place I was at.
I respect that. You went and bought one because you didn't want to match.
You didn't want to match.
Or you carry around a backup hat.
It just came directly out of the pocket, out of the back pocket.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, you know what Charlie would have loved if you guys had to say. That's such a Charlie move.
I was like,
Charlie's
where?
like, yeah, he would have loved that you guys were twinning the whole day.
I mean, maybe I'm going to have Domonique wear that Pinehurst pullover for one podcast.
Am I allowed on Pinehurst? Is that
definitely
when 90, 93 is when I could get in? 80?
No, it's like a big old resort.
76. I'm just trying to find
Pinehurst
out
rules. Please invite us back next year. That's the best trip ever.
This is Charlie uses the podcast to get free.
This is Dominique's mad because he's got
it's
no.
It's the best place on earth. Dominique, just
it's
come
the best place
on
earth
a 5-hour
for
drive.
you white heterosexual men. Like it's not the best place on earth for the rest of us. I don't know why I'm blaming Pinehurst for
sit on the rocking chairs
America's
and drink a beer with us.
racist history.
You can have transfusions. They're great.
Know. Golf makes me uncomfortable, guys.
We can tell, but if we let us open the world to you.
Yeah, that's what they said before.
Like the world of golf.
Oh, God.
They just said we're having a party on a boat. Let us show you a good time. Next thing you know, what are we talking about, Charlie?
Yeah, the Giants haven't won a game since.
Well
right.
done.
Let's talk about some college
a lot of
football.
strong black men on a boat.
The Athletic. Andrew Marchand and Stuart Mandel wrote an article about the potential of a college football super league, whether this is an 80-team conglomerate with relegation or what the machinations will look like. We're not totally sure, but it seems like there are people who are actually putting their name behind this idea as an evolution for the sport. Do you think a super league would improve college football?
Yes, it's the only path forward. I don't think a super league would like the European Super League is what we think of, and that was the worst idea ever because it was just taking like 20 of the biggest teams in Europe and saying, okay, everybody else in Europe, you'll compete for 3 or 4 spots. But the actual college football is coming off its moorings like every single day, and at some point the courts are just gonna be like, this is illegal, and you guys need to figure this out. At some point, the players will become employees, at which case everything will change. Before that, everybody needs to figure out the structure.
Right.
And there's a couple of things that go into this. Number one, it needs to be a truly national sport. So the Super League needs to be like 80 teams or 70 teams. It should not be 25 teams. It should not be 30 teams. Because as much as the Big Ten says, oh, you're really going to love Ohio State versus USC, that's true. But you know what else Ohio State fans love? They love playing Purdue. Like they love playing Michigan State. Like there's a regionality to the sport that has to exist. For me, I worry deeply that college football is going to become boxing, where the best teams are in different federations or signed to different networks, and they never play each other. I think the biggest name, you talked about it, Charlie, the names that they're attached here, a couple school presidents and a couple of ADs, but more than anything, Brian Rolapp, number 2 at the NFL, is behind it. I think the NFL needs to take a bigger role in fixing college football because they have a free minor league now that makes people hugely famous, makes Caleb Williams a star before he's played a game. Right. College basketball has eroded, that has killed. I mean, it sucks that no one knows, relatively speaking, except hoops heads, who Scoot Henderson is when he comes into the
You're
NBA.
great, Kevin.
Think about that lack of star power.
Well done, Kevin. You got us to. You set up a bunch of the points that I think are important to elaborate on. You gave us a nice table of contents. Are you going to dig deep? No, you're not going to do that. That's for me and Charlie to do. All right, so this is the point about.
I have a nuclear take that I'm going to bury in the middle of this segment.
Okay.
It'll come later.
Stick around, guys. Nuclear take buried in the segment.
It's a great take.
You already know the take?
We're buddies, remember?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. You guys.
I told him on the 18th tee.
Yeah.
I was like, don't tell anybody. But 6 weeks from now, I'm going to have a nuclear take.
All right, so the Brian Roulette point is interesting because, like, he's long, like, more than a decade now. People have thought that Roger was going to step down and Brian Roulette was going to take over, which, like, is I guess it doesn't say anything about Roger's tenure at the NFL ending anytime soon, but that was the first thing that popped in my head. Is like, why is Brian working on this? But then it kind of makes me understand the point that Charlie's made for a while about college basketball and how the NBA has, rather than collaborate with them, built an outside opportunity that really didn't help and let the college basketball system completely fall apart. And I think there are different incentives for why that happened. So it's not apples to apples and saying the NBA ruined it and the NFL will do it right. But I do think it's obviously incredibly valuable and wise for them to do this. But I will push back on one thing. Saying that college football has to change, Kevin, is different than saying that this is the change that it needs to undergo. So, like, I agree with you. The difference between what's happening in Europe is they have, with the soccer or world soccer teams, is that they have systems that work well enough now. College football has a system that is broken. So, yes, it has to change. This is the most kind of fleshed out and best possible idea. Doesn't mean that's what we need to happen in the long run. I think that my thought automatically goes to the players. They'll be collectively bargained for, but it's an interesting situation where it creates a power asymmetry that's even more dramatic than we see in professional sports. And not only does it create a power asymmetry, it also creates a shield that allows the things that are broken to continue to go on. So I agree with you. Right now it's terrible, but I don't know that this solves it.
This is actually the shield protecting something else rather than protecting the shield.
Very true. Very true. It's the. Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to get into what the pipeline's going to look like in a couple of years, but I think that something. First of all, if there's a collective bargaining process, that's something that's better than nothing. The schools need to pay these guys eventually. Now, I think, and this is the take. This is the take. So everybody keeps saying the ACC and the Big 12 have no leverage against the SEC and the Big 10, and that it's power two, and that those teams are going to eventually have their own playoff, and that it's going to be a closed system. They have one trump card. They have a sword of Damocles that can be there, which is they can threaten and maybe actually do it, actual real deal revenue sharing, because that's the only thing that's going to scare the SEC and the Big 10. Is if they're going to say, oh, we make $35 million a year in TV, if you're the ACC, the Big Ten, I think, makes double that and will in a couple of years make triple that. But we're going to give, Georgia Tech is going to give players $16 million a year. Right. That's going to terrify them. That's going to be a bargaining chip. And that's actually the way forward for these smaller conferences, is to act like complete maniacs and say, by the way, it's funny that acting like a complete maniac is giving players their fair share. Yeah. But like in the grand scheme of disruption,
I got you.
It's the only trump card they have is to say, we're going to end this business model if you don't help us.
And creating a competitive league has always been like a thing that's in the favor of the players, like having multiple places to work and not just having one potential employer. So there's some complexities of this with the timing of everyone's TV deals and all these conferences' TV deals that make this easier said than done. But I think also what's going to end up ruining this is the same thing that ruins everything in college sports. And I guess maybe you could argue just about everything in business is greed. And the teams with the most power right now have the least incentive to break the structure, and the teams with less power have more incentive to break the structure. So it's going to be a tough way to go, where these big, like Ohio State right now, has got to be as strong as they've ever been, being like they're not, I mean, Michigan won the national championship, but Ohio State is like the best team in what is thought of as the second best conference or maybe the best conference. And the same thing for Georgia. Things are going to have to change because you brought up revenue sharing with the employees. We're going to talk about revenue sharing with all the other teams. And then with Brian Rolap and all these guys, their assertion is that they're going to generate more money so that you'll make more than you do now, which is the only way to get them involved. And I'm not sure that that is true, that they'll make more money once they have to start paying their players and once they all go together and once they have to start splitting the revenue, because there is revenue sharing amongst professional franchises.
The thing that has had a bigger influence in college sports than maybe we give it credit for because it doesn't feel like it is shame. Why is Vanderbilt still in the SEC? Why is Northwestern still in the Big Ten? Why don't teams just have 80 transfer portal guys every year? I mean, Colorado did it, but like there's a certain tradition bound sense of like, okay, well, we can't really. The Big Ten is starting to do it where they're basically auctioning off games like they are the NFL, but they've always tried to make it a little bit collegiate. They've always tried to have, I mean, Jack Swarbrick said this 5 years ago where he said eventually there's going to be a schism between the teams that want to be tied to an educational system, educational institution, and the schools that don't. And does the University of South Carolina, like in 10 years, if there's a schism and they're like, hey, some guys are going with the academic institution, some guys are going with the semi-pro, like I know what 90% of the schools are going to do. And so I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about revenue sharing, is the schools are just like, I know what I want to be. We know our identity. We're breaking away. These guys don't have to go to class anymore. They're just going to be semi-pro minor league guys who have our helmet on. Like, I think that's the future because – go ahead.
The big forcing mechanism is not necessarily the power. It's that we see that the courts have turned against this structure.
Brett Kavanaugh!
Something is going to have to change. So that's what's going to force them to the table, right?
What if I just never followed up and just let the word Brett Kavanaugh
just
hang
squealed
there?
it? Yeah. Squealed Brett Kavanaugh!
I like it.
Brett Kavanaugh.
People already
and
know.
Just never followed up. No, in one of the cases, it was a very narrow ruling, but it was essentially that the NCAA couldn't cap education-related benefits. But in the ruling, Brett Kavanaugh was basically just like, everything that comes my way on the NCAA, I'm going to rule against you. Like, just bring it, guys, because this is all hugely legal. I mean, it is a cartel. I think it's hard for me. Like, one of the reasons I love NIL is because college football on most days is my favorite thing in the world, and I hated the system that was set up, which is that there were guys who reached the almost the peak of football, and were hugely famous and contributed to a really popular sport, who would leave the sport without enough money to put a down payment on a house. Now they're able to get $500,000-$600,000 if they're a solid left tackle for Alabama, but not big, strong, fast enough to get to the NFL. But I think there just needs to be more. There needs to be more. There needs to be more official status for these guys as employees, and it will eventually happen. It'll happen soon, and when that happens, the business model is going to change so much that a super league wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I just hope there's actual relegation if they do a real super league. Now it was proposed in that article about the top 70 teams have permanent status, and it's actually just picking on the small teams who might not be there anyway. Like, that's the stakes of it. That would be interesting. Like, let's see. You just Vanderbilt. Like, let's see the Miami Hurricanes get relegated when they have another season where they lose to Vanderbilt by 7 in the Super League.
I have no doubt we will lose by 7 to Vanderbilt.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the future of college football. They have to be proactive because I think that the important thing about the cases, if I remember correctly, like, the damages that they're facing can be treble, and it could destroy some of these institutions, but also like the future of the institution. So you made a point that, Kevin, that these schools will have to decide whether they want to be tied to academics or not. But right now, it at least feels like most schools are very much dependent inside their athletic programs and outside are very much dependent on the money generated by football. Yeah. So like, I just don't know how all this will turn out, and it's fine. Like, I'm not uncomfortable with the unknown, but we can't assume that the unknown is going to be better for all parties. Like, someone is going to, some schools, or some players, some coaches, somebody is going to be worse off in this future program, and we don't exactly know who it is yet. And I mean, it's probably the players. It's always the players.
I think that there are things in the courts where there are so many unintended consequences that one day we're just going to see some wild ruling that's going to change college sports beyond what we know it. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Number one is like the Florida State ACC thing, where, I mean, part of the argument is that the grant of rights in the ACC is not valid. And there's kind of a dog that caught the car situation where, like, there could be a ruling where, like, conferences become illegal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Right. The courts could be like, wait a second. No, like, you guys are free to go wherever you want. Doesn't matter if you sign a document. Like, there could be that kind of thing. And once you get into the courts, they don't respect just because we were doing this 80 years ago as a legal standard. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've heard the theory that what happens if NIL becomes a Title IX thing and they have to give equal money if there's athletic department involvement, equal money to women's athletes as well as men's athletes. Like, there's also, I've just heard different things thrown out there where, like, hey, one day the courts might rule this, and then everything we think about college football is going to change. And I don't think it can be worse because the system was so set up so horribly 15 years ago. And again, this is my line, like, the college football rules never made any sense. And so now we're papering over with new rules that make less sense because we're just trying to stop the leaks that are kind of coming because of the way it was set up.
I agree. It's whack-a-mole. Rather than building a structure that works, it's like whack-a-mole, and it keeps making things somewhat worse. But I think that for all professional sports, which we accept that college sports is also, at least football at major schools is, there's this challenge, I think, between doing what's best in some cases. Actually, there are two things. You want to do what's best for the entertainment value and the quality of the game, and you want to do what's best for the players. And that's like a perspective that I have. And I think that those things conflict and contradict at certain points. And my concern is when they contradict in the NFL, there is some power to push back. In college, I know we say that they're going to have a union, they can collectively bargain, but the challenges that we had when negotiating for both basketball and football unions was because we did not have the continuity and to stick together, and we had divisions amongst players and misaligned incentives. That's only going to be exacerbated by the disparity in players in college in college sports. So, like, if I'm a low-tier NFL player or a league minimum NFL player, which I was at one point, my life is very different from than Champ Bailey, who was on the same team as me. So our incentives are very different. And I just got there. And so in college, you have that same thing where part of the success in unions in other places like major auto unions or teachers unions that have some leverage and some power to enact change is because UPS union, because those people are there for 20, 30 years. The shorter you make that time period, the weaker the ties are to each other and the less strength that the union has. And then you have within the union people who have earning potential of tens of hundreds of millions of dollars versus people who are going to go out and get regular jobs. So that's what scares me about them just slapping the title union and saying, we're going to collectively bargain with this guy. How in the hell do you find an organized set of rules that the union would stand for that they won't be divided by? It's a tough spot to be in. And that's why, while I'm excited about the prospect of changing college football to something that's fairer, I'm under no illusions that it's actually going to end up being better for players.
That's probably fair.
It is.
But it was significantly worse when you were playing. When you were playing, were you ever just like, I can't believe how stupid the system is?
Yeah.
Like when you were at Maryland?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I told this story before on here. My freshman year, we played, we lost one game in the regular season, and then we got blown out in the in the Orange Bowl after we won the ACC championship.
I was at both of those losses.
Bad luck. Glad that you're never in studio with us. But I remember coming back with my DVD player and my bag of Orange Bowl hoodies to our facility where all the coaches had new Cadillacs. And prior to that, the year before, the coaches were not making nearly as much money or getting endorsements. And I just remember thinking, I got a bag of sweatshirts. Like the contradiction was never more obvious to me than when I was walking through the parking lot of all these Cadillacs that were leased to these coaches for free because we had some, or not leased for free, but given to them, loaned to them for free because we now had a Cadillac endorsement. while I had a gym bag with hoodies in it. And then the next day, because we had such a good season, we were able to get higher level recruits. And I remember going back to the dorms and hearing the guys who had to have meetings with coach and was like, hey, why don't you go? I got a friend who's coaching at Hofstra that thinks that you could be this is not a joke. Like, it's funny, but it's not.
I know.
I remember the guy. So I remember his face when he was like hurt. And he was like, well. And then he said he pushed back, like, I don't know if I want to go to Hofstra. And the coach was like, well, ain't going to be a scholarship here for you because, scholarships are year to year. Ain't going to be a scholarship here for you, so unless you can pay tuition, I guess you better go holla at Hofstra. And that was like the first time when I gone from high school and I was like, oh, I'm not playing a team sport anymore. I'm a member of a business. And then from then on, other things happened that made it even more obvious, but that was it. And one of my best friends now, I do have friends, still like
us.
Yeah, you guys. But another best friend who was my college roommate was a great punt returner, Steve Suter. I'm sure you remember him if you were at those games. He was like a fan favorite. Great punt returner. Fan favorite.
Are you trying to get me to be like I was a huge Suter head?
No, I'm not trying to get you to say Suter's head. I was sending a message to everyone who's listening and watching that I called him a fan favorite 3 times. Anyway. Like, he has medical issues as a result of fracturing his finger and tearing up his knee and his shoulder. But because you're not employees, you're not, like, eligible for workers' comp. You were playing a club sport, essentially. And, like, all that stuff while we're looking at my coaches, like James Franklin was his receivers coach. Like, he's gone on to great things. Ralph Friedgen was our coach. He had multiple houses in multiple places. My man Steve doing fine, but, I mean, it was an all-American punt returner. So, like, I don't know. I don't know. This is not the rabbit hole we were trying to go down. We're having a fun, happy podcast, which we shouldn't be sad about Steve. He's awesome, but it just makes me mad.
I mean, do all Maryland Steves look identical to Steve Blake? I'm just on his Google Images.
How dare you? Steve Suter, much handsomer than Steve Blake.
Same guy.
All right, we got to end this so that I can fight you on behalf of the honor of my guy Steve Suter.
Just on
Express.
As we push this forward, definitely a fan favorite. Yeah. College football is going to change. Right. That is obvious. That's going to change scouting. We are on the precipice of an NFL draft. How do you think changes in college football, if we look 5 years down the road, how's it going to change the NFL draft? Better, worse, different? What do you guys think that will cause?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. Number one, the coaches are going to change because it's a different sport. Like, I don't know if you saw Dan Hurley's quote the other day, but he said that the reason he's so excited, he was joking, but he said he loved making Final Four runs because it doesn't have to deal with the transfer portal. Like, that's what this is now. And when Nick Saban retired, I thought that he took a couple pot shots at NIL that were maybe overstepping, but I think he's what he was basically saying was that this wasn't his sport anymore. And I don't think there's any shame in saying that because it's just different now. It's portal every single year. I think, like, you look at Florida State and how they made an Orange Bowl team with basically transfers and nothing else. So I think there's 8 guys who are going to be drafted this year from Florida State, and I believe all of them are transfers. That's going to be the future, year-to-year guys. If you're good at Western Michigan, you transfer up. If you're good at Albany, you transfer up. Middle Tennessee State, you transfer up. And so that's going to change everything.
That's going to go away, though.
Coaches,
that's going to go away.
When is that going to go?
I think we're talking about this as an assumption of the Super League, right?
No, it's already happening. The
right.
G5 is the new JUCO.
No, okay, I get that.
You go play at Marshall in order to go play at LSU.
I completely understand that. I thought that you were saying. I thought the question was asking, how do we think that this Super League is going to change that? Because I think the Super League eliminates all of that stuff.
Right. So what I'm saying, I'm talking about the next few years of how the pipeline is going to change. So the coaches are going to get different. Are the coaches just going to become like AAU-style college basketball guys where they're just talent acquisition? They don't even run plays. And listen, I mean, there's people have said they don't even run plays at the college football level now. But is it going to become more about which handler do you know to get the 5 kids from – from Idaho or whatever, even though Idaho is not a real state, as evidenced earlier.
It's a real state.
I think that's what you said. Yeah, well, I mean, it's up for debate. But I think that it's going to just change everything. And I think the biggest thing, Domonique, is as we go through this, and we talk about the Super League, Has anyone asked the players, like the Caleb Williams who's going to be born in 2009, has anybody asked them if they want to play college football? Like, if you are, is there going to be a guy who says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm a great quarterback. I'm the Trevor Lawrence of my class of 2029. I'm going to spend the next 3 years at the practice fields at IMG Academy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm just saying that there are possibilities here where the pipeline is completely disrupted. I already talked about the ability for the smaller conferences to do real deal revenue sharing. What about the UFL? That's always been threatened. People have always talked about that stuff, but these kids are getting smarter, making business decisions. We saw that a little bit with the G League, even though it didn't really work. But they're getting smarter at career management. They already go to the places they're going to maximize their ability to get to the pros. And I remember somebody saying at the beginning of NIL that Saban and Kirby can take a discount. And it's almost like the social network, right? Where it's like, in NIL, $2 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $20 million. And then at 5 years after that, $200 million. Kirby and Saban can maximize that, and whereas maybe Tennessee can't. And so I think I think there's probably going to be, I think in 5 years, the pipeline is going to look dramatically different. I'm not really sure how, Dominique. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the point you bring up about potentially people completely taking an end run around college football is an interesting one, because if you are high, I think a quarterback could do that now. If you're high enough.
Or opting out, by the way, of 4 playoff games and saying like, whoa, this is way too many games.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a highly touted quarterback now and you decide that you don't want to go to college, you're going to get drafted in the first round if you spend 3 years playing outside of or practicing and refining your skills.
So you think, like, if Quinn Ewers, like, he was the number 1 recruit in the country, if he had 3 years of just like training with an agent for the NFL draft, he's going higher in this draft?
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess he's not in this draft. He went back to Texas. But
yeah, he went back.
It'd be hard. If he had no proof of concept against live defenses, he would still have a job. Yeah,
he'd be a first-round pick because it's the pedigree combined with the importance of the position. Maybe it's different for other places, and combined with like the less physical nature of the position. I think it's hard. It'd be hard to convince me that an offensive tackle can play at this level if I just saw him play high school and then lift weights for 3 years. But I still think that people want to give DJ Burns a shot.
Yeah,
in the draft.
I would have thought that the opposite. I would have thought to like the big physical positions, like if you're
big and strong. I don't know. I think that there are things that will change. Like, drive blocking is different against a sled and a person. Throwing is not different whether you are in shorts or anything else. But I don't know. Either way, I think that everything will change as we go forward. And I think the point that you were making about how the kids are becoming a little bit more savvy, it goes back to the point I was making before, is these are decisions that are made in the best interest of the player that are not necessarily in the best interest of the product. And as we get older, I can feel myself caring about the product more than I ever have, but trying desperately to cling to the fact that I understand that what's most important for the player, if I was in that position, I'd want that. But I can understand that none of these things are going to make college football better.
Yeah.
None of these things are going to make college football better.
Well, there's something interesting because
none of these like end runs and like special techniques and like that doesn't make college football better.
Well, I just thought this, but like, so Nico Collins, Jamar Chase, they both sat out the COVID season and they're both on the precipice of massive paydays. You really think that's like full season sitting out now? I have enough on film. That's the next step for players to have leverage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at some point if we see a season opt out mid-season if someone's getting the crap knocked out of him for an offensive like if you're Caleb Williams and you're just like, this sucks. Like, would any scout be like, I blame him? Like, I really don't think that he would drop very much. If in October he'd be like, you know what? Taking too many hits. My defense sucks. My coaching staff sucks. I'm out of here. Like, I really don't think he would have dropped it too.
Running back should have started doing this a long time ago. Like, I'm just going to rest up for 2 years after I showed you what I could do my rookie season or my freshman season.
We're going to train in Hawaii. I'll see you guys.
You get a fresh T-shirt, fresh off the plane, baby. All right, welcome in our good friend, Jason Goff. Where'd you watch the Eclipse, man? How'd you do that? I know you got excited for it. You seem like the type of guy who loves any sort of celestial event.
Yeah, that sounds like me. No, my lady said, "Hey, let's get the glasses and go outside." And I was like, "Darn, thought you forgot about it." So we went downtown and actually rode right in front of my old job, which is always fun to see people spilling out of an office building you once worked at. But we rolled over there, went outside, stared our dumbasses in the air for a couple of minutes, and then got back in the car and went about our business to go have some lunch. But it was a cool event. Carbondale, Illinois had a complete blackout. It
was free.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys had a complete blackout?
Carbondale did. Carbondale, which is like 6 hours away. Shout out to SIU.
Oh,
but, it did not.
That's the thing. There's the thing about us on the East Coast. When you say something's in your state, I mean, that to me assumes that it's driving distance. But no, when you live out there where people was in a rush, like, hey, all right, you got all this land. It's a long distance.
I was actually on the phone while Domonique saw the eclipse.
Well, I saw it a bunch of times.
But right at it was like 2:32. Domonique, I hear some birds chirping behind him. Walks outside and he's like, "All right, time to look at this eclipse." Then he was like, "All right, I'm good. That's all you need. You need about 30 seconds of clips, then we're good to go."
Yeah. And then I went in and turned on the real clips.
There it is.
I was listening to
Hell Hath No Fury. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to the real clips.
Old rapper.
Right.
I saw it again when I went to pick up my son. It happened to still be up there. We took another peek. It was still clips.
Still happening.
Happened to still be up there. The sun still in the sky.
And the moon. They still happen to be up there. Still up there. Doing whatever they was doing. Crossing each other over. Giving them the old Iverson.
Bills still do, by the way. After everybody is done crying, after all these marriages, after all the proposals, after Charlie gets off the phone, Bills still do. So
it was kind of cool though to see a bunch of people, like as we were driving and just people stop and look up. It was kind of cool, and it wasn't because a meteor was hitting the earth. That's the only other time that I remember everybody's looking up. It's like in movies where they're like, something is coming to destroy us all.
Yeah, the little Armageddon action where all of a sudden, one of your favorite black comedians pops out of a cab and says, "Look at that up there," and then then we get back to real life.
We're going to get to some sports in a second, but you brought up, or I guess I brought up the clips.
Yeah.
I feel like Pusha T, one of the reigning battle rappers, I guess not battle rappers, diss trackers available. I got to get your reaction on J. Cole's response and then, I mean, I don't need your reaction, I guess.
We come from a different, we come from... Ice Cube and Common. We come from Hit 'Em Up. We come from the Kumo D and LL Cool J was the first beef I thought I was ever involved in where I had to pick sides as a kid. And in 1987, when you walking down to the record store to go buy Bigger Endeavor, and all of a sudden Kumo D come out, I used to live downtown. I'm like, wait a minute, hey, he coming at you, LL. What you gonna do? It's a sport. It's always been a sport. So the fact that J. Cole decided to take his talents out of the studio, then I'm cool. As long, and everybody with the think pieces too, Domonique, each other like,
they writing those? I can't read that.
You guys don't understand what it is to have a secure in his emotions and understanding black man at the top of the rap game. And I'm like, cool, but I listen to rap, so I want people to rap.
And hip hop also is like, this is the essence of hip hop. It's not like any other genre of music. Like the hip hop was born of MCs telling you why they rock the party better than other people. So like, I'm not actually like upset or annoyed by this. I'm surprised by it, but I do think it was a hell of a miscalculation by J. Cole the whole way through. Like, why respond and then apologize because you didn't end one beef? You started 15 others, because every track that comes out between now and the end of the summer is going to have at least one line calling J. Cole some sort of insult because
This was his South Beach moment. Oh, fantastic. This was his South Beach. This is his, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. Now, half of the game is going to hate you, and the people who liked you are going to stay in your corner for as long as they can stand the fact that they getting pelted as well. Like, we got to, like, this is back to lunchroom war stuff where you like, hey, you like Biggie, I like Pac. And unfortunately, how that ended was tragic and all that. But since then, we've had people get into it and, stay scheming, right? I mean, we've had these albums.
And these
records.
two guys are like, they're like actual, like, they're not hood dudes who turn to rap. Like, they are dudes who grew up in the hood who are poets, actually.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's very different. I at no point was anybody concerned that these two guys was going to escalate to anything worse. But anyway, we
Drake's
Charlie
the one you got to
over
worry
too
about.
long.
That's the tough guy you got to worry about out there.
He actually he makes some bad decisions. No disrespect, Charlie and I have lots of really great hip hop conversations because he's a mixtape Wayne guy, just like
really?
That was when I knew
that's my era, man.
That's when I found out that Charlie and I could be friends. I was like, all right, we could be co-workers. Okay. And then he started reciting lyrics and properly edited lyrics to mixtape Wayne.
Shout out to Charlie.
I was like, that's my guy right there.
Look,
Snack.
It's the Dat Piff generation. Oh. You had to think you were on something first by getting the mixtape.
Yeah. Shout out to the
what he doesn't know about, though, is how I was getting DMX versus Cannabis CDs from the Patapsco flea market. He was too young for that, but I appreciate the Dat Piff era.
Yeah, it was, Dat Piff because I was post flea market mixtape.
New era.
Speaking of new eras, Should we talk some college hoops?
Let's get it
if we have to.
All right, we're taping this on Tuesday, the day after UConn won another national championship. Dan Hurley has turned into the number one dignitary of college basketball, the best coach in the sport. But I want to ask you guys, coming off that game, which side was more interesting to you? UConn's dynasty and how it's built, or how Purdue and Zach Edey played in that game?
So for me, the dynasty talk around UConn is incredibly interesting because we've done this blue blood thing for 30, 40 some odd years, as long as I can remember watching college basketball. And then the blue bloods try to change a little bit on you. Like, I remember as a kid, it was Kentucky, it was Kansas, it was North Carolina, it was Duke, it was Indiana, it was UCLA. And then you throw in another team every once in a while. But Indiana and UCLA haven't been at that top tier, upper echelon of basketball programs in the recent decades. So now that Kentucky and some of these other schools are starting to fall back a little bit, and UConn has done what they've done in the last 25 years, the dynastic talk is it's interesting because you don't get that nowadays, right? You talk about Arkansas or, you talk about that Florida team back-to-back years, and what makes it more important to me is they don't have a standout, I'm going to change your franchise NBA player on this lot either. Like, sometimes those dynasties have one of those guys, and then the juniors and seniors who play with those guys grow, and then they're also a part of it. They don't have one of those dudes, and this is going to be one of the worst drafts that people have talked about in a while. So I think that part of it, putting together a team with maybe a couple first-round picks and then a couple of older cats and then Danny Hurley doing his thing. Like, it's a different version, like not the star-studded situation that we're used to when we talk about dynasties in college basketball.
They dominated over the past two seasons. Like, we can go through all the stats, but people who are listening to this podcast have probably heard those a bunch of different places. But the fact of the matter is they didn't have a close game in the tournament this year or last year.
2 years, yeah.
They've been back-to-back champions, and it's with a significant amount of roster turnover. So I think, and they are a blue blood. Some of those teams that you were mentioning in the blue blood conversation, their blood ain't so blue anymore. But UConn definitely are a historic franchise. It feels like a blue blood. They have a coach who Charlie has said is going to be basketball's Nick Saban.
You stole my line. I didn't even get to say it yet.
Oh, my bad. You said it in the
Hurley's going to be basketball Nick Saban at UConn.
Oh,
there we go.
There it is. Hey,
my bad.
Clip that right there.
Yeah, we can cut around that.
Put that take on Get Up.
I'm sorry, Charlie. While he may become a dynasty like Nick Saban, that man act like Jim Harbaugh. He's a hyper aggressive, super weird.
Yeah.
Only like if coaching didn't exist, I'd be scared for society if those two fools was running around.
Falling down,
so maybe that's the
vibes.
temperament. Yeah, that's the temperament you have to build something like this. It's interesting because this. I don't know, Charlie. Would you consider this like the first dynasty of the NIL era?
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's a different. It requires a different set of skills, which I think that we all would have assumed Calipari was built to produce with the one and done situation, but he's moved on to redder pastures, I guess. Either way, this UConn dynasty I think deserves to be appreciated and celebrated. But I do like I like stars. I like caring. Having it completely juxtaposed with the women's tournament has, and I don't want to do this conversation all over again. I'll just say, like, watching Zach Edey play and then having the women's tournament happen, it just reminds me of the 90s. You know, like the early 90s where it was like, hey, post-game, and people I knew from last year. So I'm such an old man. I want my battle rappers to battle, and I want my college players to stick around long enough for me to know and care about.
I mean, to be fair, South Carolina did win by being tall.
Yeah, that's a fair point. They did. They had Cardozo.
Yeah.
You said they had 1.5 shots per possession or something like that.
Yeah.
Offensive rebounds.
Second chance points.
Yeah, that ain't fair. They played a different game.
But the one thing, Jason, you brought up a really interesting point that we might look back at this team and be like, this is different than other dynastic teams because they don't have NBA stars. But I think Klingon's going to be a top 10 pick. Stephon Castle is a really interesting guy. He might be in the top 5. And Spencer, like, there are scouts, anonymous draft scouts from The Athletic who are saying this guy could have a 10-year NBA career. There's a chance we're going to look back on it and this team might be a lot more impressive in retrospect than what we thought of at the time. I mean, Castle in particular, that's a dude who's a McDonald's All-American. He cuts, he sort of plays in that Derek White, Bruce Brown style, and he did something that's really, really difficult for freshmen to do. He fit into a role as a McDonald's All-American, someone who probably at any other program would have been a primary ball handler. And that's someone who's a really intriguing prospect to me. And that's like, to me, it's like you wonder why I think Dan Hurley can be a basketball Saban type, because that's what Saban did for years. He had people grow and develop into roles within the Alabama program. And that's something Calipari never was able to do at Kentucky. That if Hurley's able to do in this era of being like, I can prepare you for the NBA better, even if it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. That's the calling card for a program that differentiates itself from other blue bloods.
And I think it's a product of, because when we look at drafts, we also look at recruiting classes. So when did this thing start? 2 years ago, we were talking about recruiting classes being down. And now we see 2-3 years later, okay, the teams that have made their run, senior heavy, guard heavy, of course, NC State run with a lot of older players on it. So, yeah, I have no problem, and I wish these dudes the best. I think Stephon Castle's going to have himself a nice long career, like you mentioned. But even on the collegiate level, guys who go on to have NBA careers who are stars on the collegiate level, like Shane Battier was a star. Right? Yeah. And then Shane Battier goes on to be a champion, hits big shots with LeBron in the Miami Heat, has a 10-plus year career, probably if he wanted to, could run for president, right? So it's not that he wasn't a star on the collegiate level. I honestly, in watching the UConn Huskies this year especially, I mean, last year they lost Jordan Hawkins, they lost a whole bunch of Adoma Sanogo, who's playing with the Windy City Bulls and the Chicago Bulls here in the city. Like, they lost 3 professional players last year, but none of those guys would you say to yourself, man, that dude right there, if he comes back, he's going to be 27 a game and take over the land. That's why I think this thing is it's more a function of what old college basketball used to be for me too. Like, the teams that didn't have the stars, the coaches were the stars. Like, I grew up in the Big Ten where it was Izzo and Katie and all the Lou Henson and all these cats and Bob Knight, all these dudes who ran college basketball from the seat. I think Danny Hurley has found himself in a really, really interesting position where, if the money is right, and I'm talking about the NIL money and the funds that you aggregate to getting these kids to come to school, and you can keep them on campus getting paid and say, hey, you want to come back and three-peat? Like, he's holding iron fists right now. And then if they get somebody, watch out, because that Cooper Flagg loss was big for them. That was big for them. That was big.
I'm sorry. Cooper Flagg makes me laugh, but also I'm laughing in part because you said Shane Battier's name, and for whatever reason, I guess because we were talking about J. Cole earlier, it triggered in my mind that J. Cole, man who don't want to diss nobody, he took a shot at Shane. Did he diss Shane Battier? Like, called him corny or something? Or just like not cool or something to that effect?
I bet you Shane gonna respond and not take it back.
Yeah, Shane ain't gonna back down. But Shane.
See how it all comes back around?
I will say no one has ever accused Shane Battier of being cool.
Yeah, that is very true. And I don't think Shane Battier would purport himself as a cool guy.
All you guys need to know is I covered the Moody Bible Institute draft camp here in Chicago, where Shane Battier comes off of the bus and is greeted like the president because everybody knew how impressive he was. And I believe in the same camp, off the second row of that bus with a pair of Converse slung over his shoulder with no gym bag, no like actual stuff to hoop in, just his shoes, was Gilbert Arenas. Okay, so all you need to know is, hey, corny or not, cool or not, buckets come in all shapes, forms, and fashions, and those two careers took the turns that they needed to take. But yeah.
J. Cole had a very short professional basketball career too, didn't he? When he
sure did.
He was playing overseas. So anyway, brother, you lame, you're Shane Battier was the line specifically. Anyway, we got some more stuff to talk about with you from Coach.
One thing before we move on to Coach Cal and Arkansas stuff, the Zach Edey of it all, and this actually connects back to Hurley, because at halftime, Hurley said something really interesting. He was smiling, doing a down barrel shot at the camera, being like, I like the pace of this game. This benefits us.
That shocked me.
Yes.
When he said that, I was like, what are you doing?
But it was also like, we're watching this, and like, Zach Edey was running so hard on the first few possessions to dominate. He's making everything. He ended up with 37 points, but he's not even getting deep post position. He's making fadeaway hook shots. You know, Braden Smith, Lawyer, they're coming out running so hard, and you saw the life get like sort of boa constrictor sucked out of that team by the way UConn was playing. But
that's an impressive level of patience and confidence that being a national championship coach can give you, because him saying that is unlike any. That's like you said he's Saban-esque. Saban would never.
Yeah.
No coaches. You know, that interview is just something you have to
rat
get
poison.
through. Yeah, you just have to get through that interview. But myself, as a high-level 11-year-old flag football coach, I know how uncomfortable it is, even when the game is being played the way that you want it to be played, but you're not having the success that you anticipate. Like, it's got to be hard to be like, nope, stick with the plan. We're not going to double this man-child that is giving Klingon all the work. We're going to go ahead and stick with it and continue to let the process play itself out. It was pretty impressive for him, because when he said that, it set off an alarm bell in my head, because that's more aggressive than any coach ever talks at any time.
And against the best player in college basketball.
Yeah. So what stuck out to me, it's funny that you guys mentioned that. I watched the game again this morning. 18-16, if you guys go back and watch the out of commercial timeout with Tracy Wolfson, he says that this isn't sustainable, the way that he is getting deep post position and getting looks. And something happened. And you talk about Klingon getting that work. Klingon was getting that work because he made everything look hard for that dude. He was uprooting him. He was beating him down court and getting that pinch post position before Zach could get set. Right, and they were getting good looks at the basket. So you're taking the ball out of the net. Next thing you know, Klingon's down here waiting on you. So it's funny how it looked from 18-16 being the score to the point in time in the game where he was like, oh, we're doing now everything we want, even though he was scoring at the same rate, if that makes any sense. Like, we're doing everything we want. Everything's hard. We know he doesn't have the agility to turn around and pop a corner skip pass and things of that nature. Like, we know where their pick and roll was coming from. I thought they had a schematical issue with setting their pick and roll so high out. Like, you got to get that thing a little bit closer, because we know that they know you can't shoot. So they're not respecting any of that out there. Like, it was some interesting basketball stuff going on, and I think Danny Hurley he won the chess match, even though he didn't have the biggest piece per se.
I mean, it was amazing. I mean, after the game, Hurley said that UConn was clearly the best team all season long, and Purdue was clearly the second best team, which is a hilarious burn to begin with. But I thought Edey's points, that was the rat poison. That was the fool's gold for Purdue to start that game, because 7 3-point attempts, 1 for 7 from 3 in that game, basically force feeding Zach Edey. And I'm sorry, this is going to really upset Bob Ryan, but that is the reason why post play is dying in a certain way in college basketball, because it's just so difficult to score on those twos, to run everything through someone who's going to take heavily contested shots around a lot of bodies. Like, in a certain sense, it might have been better for Purdue if he hadn't come out that hot.
Right. I mean, I think it's difficult because they had someone big enough to make those points hard. And so, like, I think that's why it does, and that transition to another place that I don't know that we were going to go, but like, that's why Zach Edey as an NBA prospect is less attractive, because those offensive values are real nice when 6'7" DJ Burns is trying to guard you in the paint, but when there's another 7-footer there, it's not nearly as valuable. But you're right about And I guess what else would you have them do, though? Because that's the way that they play. I don't know that they hit very many, like, off-dribble contested threes. Like, they are like an old-school football team, and we're going to run the ball until you load the box to stop us. Well, then we going deep. Right. We're not going to try to beat this cover 2 without getting you to rotate down in the 3, man.
But this is the thing. They had plenty of tournament games where they took 23-point attempts. Mm-hmm. Seven's ridiculous.
Right, I get that. But my assumption is, and I haven't watched all those games, is that those were off of doubles, or those were off of pick and rolls where people are set deep. Like, those are all reactions to Zach Edey.
Definitely.
And UConn was like, all right, go ahead, play basketball like it's 1993, and we're gonna go ahead and play with you right here. Then we're gonna go play 2024 on the other end.
There has to be some. That's Matt Painter getting like circles coached around him too, though, because like Purdue is the number 2 3-point shooting team in the country coming into that game.
Right, again,
and obvious off doubles.
So like, that's
what
I'm saying. Like, I don't know that it's being having coaches or having circles coached around him as much as it's they had to use the analogy that Jason was using. They had the biggest piece. But UConn had extra rooks and pawns and bishops. They had a lot of them. So I'm not sure what I would have them do. Your answer to that would be to then make one of those mediocre perimeter players the focal point of the offense? Nah.
No, it's not the focal point. It's just like the dispersion has to be larger than what it was. There has to be other action to get guys open
and you
shots.
Have to create, you have to create other stuff. Like if you have to constantly, I watched this with the Bulls.
Right.
If you constantly have to play a perfect offensive game, well, guess what? Now you got to press. Now you got to get extra possessions. Now you can't allow offensive rebounds. Now the reading recognition on the pick and roll with a player that big, like that. When we talk about his NBA prospects, the reason why that kind of thing doesn't work in the NBA anymore is because I gotta get you to go 16 for 20 every night. And I'm still batting 500 if the other team shoots 30 or 40 threes and beats you. Right? Jahlil Okafor is the last big man, I believe, to be drafted incredibly high where the only skill is back to the basket stuff, right? And that was just, that wasn't 2 decades ago. That was just, 9-8 years ago, something like that. So the game, for you to put the ball in the hands of a player that is that, I won't say limited, but, he's not versatile enough. So you have to win through him. And then on top of it, you got to ask everybody around him to be damn near perfect. And on a night where the recognition was, hey, we're going to have to force some of these threes because they are creating extra possessions. And on top of it, you're getting one look. Like it's quite the math problem to find yourself in the national championship game, but that's what happened.
Jahlil Okafor just brought something in my head.
Him holding a baseball. You seen that photo?
I haven't seen that photo. He's got monster hands. I don't know.
I'll bring it up.
We could put it up for the viewers, but it just reminded me that one of my friends who played college basketball, he's probably listening to it now, he's going to be mad at me, but I told him that Jahlil Okafor was not going to be the pro, but he was all in. Oh, that's not real. That's Photoshop.
That's real.
That's Photoshop.
This is real.
Him holding the baseball?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I just remember
holding a basketball.
That's right. 76ers fans didn't get a chance to either. Oh, that's not cool. Hold on, that's not cool. You're Chicago, dude. I'm joking.
No, it's cool.
No. It's summer. It's summertime, Dominique. Everybody outside. Let me go ahead and take that.
Yeah. I was gonna go with Larry O'Brien instead. You're right. It's hot. I mean, he wasn't even close.
I was about to say it's 1,000 dudes you haven't else with Larry O'Brien. How dare you be a top pick and not win a championship?
The thing was, me and my friend got into a heated debate, and you would have been surprised by our racial breakdown.
Oh, well.
But I was like, I'd rather have Frank Kaminsky. And he was like, Jahlil Okafor. It's like, give me Frank Kaminsky over Jahlil Okafor. So I was, maybe at the time, I was wrong.
You were both wrong.
But I was about to say.
No, that was the point. I was trying to find the worst possible player that I would rather have because I was like, listen, Frank Kaminsky can shoot from the outside and protect the rim. He's a much more valuable basketball player in the NBA than Jahlil Okafor, who cannot protect the rim, and you have to play through the post.
Let me ask you, which baby shower were you at where this broke out at? Because this is the only place where that spirited of a hypothetical. And by the way, I can't stand for the Chicagoland area slander now because you threw another guy in the table with Frank Kaminsky from the crib too.
I was rooting for Frank. I'm a Frank guy. I was like, give me Frank the Tank over Jahlil Okafor. I said, give me Frank over Jahlil Okafor.
A couple of things. We should have known everything we needed to know about Karl Anthony Towns from the fact that he lost to Frank the Tank. And second of all, has any title game that was super hyped aged more like milk than Kaminsky and Sam Decker against Jahlil Okafor and Justice Winslow? Tyus Jones was the crown jewel of that national championship game.
Charlie,
wasn't Collie was guarding Frank, to be fair. But anyway, go ahead.
Charlie just actually detailed the reason why I stay away from college basketball. Because you're gonna have so many shattered dreams. It's like you see your favorite movie stars and you're like, oh, this next movie is about to be fire, and then you're like, oh, this is the child support movie. Okay, this is the one you took just because you got back on a little something.
I was gonna say Summer House or the boat. No, you went for. I don't know what type of actors you talking about, man.
Oh, you saw Wild Hogs. Knock it off. Knock it off.
I did not see Wild Hogs.
Go check it out.
Because I was busy drafting Frank Kaminsky. My God. Oh, man. To this point, though, I'm looking at the 2015 draft, and this could lead us to – I know we want to talk about Calipari at some point, but this could lead us to the LeBron conversation.
Yeah, we can go to Bronny after
because I'm looking at a lot of these names, and that was a good draft. Mm-hmm. A lot of these names ain't on these teams. So go ahead, Charlie.
Which one interests you the most? Devin Booker going 13?
Yeah, that one pops up. Well, I mean, we could go Okafor. Yeah. Mario Hezonja played for a while, right?
Fellas, there's one.
I haven't given up on Super Mario.
Yeah, right? There's one draft and one draft only. Whenever you want to think to yourself that, hey, I had a chance back then, just go ahead and look at that 2000 NBA draft. It might be the worst professional draft of all time. Okay? And shout out to everybody who came in that 2000 class. But it might be. There's some
give me a second
tall timber right there, boy. I believe Jerome Mawiso was a lottery pick in that joint, if I'm not mistaken. And Charlie, this is probably before your time, obviously. But
no. Yeah. This is the beginning of my NBA fandom.
Charlie was like a young teenager at that time.
10.
10? Oh, yeah.
Your top two picks are pretty much at the moment they were drafted, they're like, hey, you guys going to fight it out for Rookie of the Year because there's nothing else happening.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Miller came in and stole it. But still one of the best looking jump shots. Yeah. Mike Miller. Michael Redd, probably the best player from that draft, taken in the second round.
Think about that.
Yeah. It's a lot of nothing out here. A lot of nothing.
Talk about guys I haven't given up on though. Stromile Swift and Darius Miles.
The Stro Show. Come on now. Every time he dunked, he did this. Come on, let's go.
Oh yeah.
And Darius Miles with the headbands. Anyway, LeBron.
All right, let's talk Bronny. Yeah. Okay. So we all know this has been floating around. Bronny has sort of dipped his toe into the NBA draft waters. He can still transfer. He can still go back to USC, although that does not seem likely. He is listed at 6'4", probably a 6'2" wing who averaged 4.8 points per game in the Pac-12 at USC. But this is a historically weak NBA draft. And if it gave you a shot of signing 40-year-old LeBron James, how high would you draft Bronny James?
I mean, this is your putting this into this specific draft. I think so. The problem is the only teams that I think should want LeBron James are teams that are actually trying to win a championship or just trying to make some quick bucks. Right. And so they will be at the end of the draft. So teams that are at the top of the draft, like if you're actually trying to rebuild, I'm not sure LeBron helps you, maybe puts butts in seats. So I don't know. We have two franchises that are not as good as we'd like them to be between Chicago and D.C. So here in D.C., I'm not a Wizards fan, but I do go to enough Wizards games where I'm like, bring me Bronny, bring me LeBron, because I would much rather go watch that than watch what I watched last Friday.
Yeah, I'm down with all of it. I'm down for the stories, okay? I know these gentlemen have families and legacies to procure and all that, but as long as everybody stays healthy, bring me the soap opera. All right, I'm looking forward to the Golden State Warriors saying, "Hey, come on down to the Bay and do what you know you want to do out here." We'll let Draymond hang around. Yeah, come on, man. Forget this. Let's blow the league up. Blow it up.
LeBron and Draymond together, we might get a different version of Draymond.
Might get a different version of Steph. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Steph could put on that black hat that he's always wanted to wear, but everybody thinks he's like the cute, light skin, That dude is 6'3", 215 pounds. He'll walk into any grocery store and intimidate everybody, but we keep treating him like he like this, little troll doll that just, hits 3-pointers at a historic rate. No, man. Let him wear the black hat. Like, you remember when Kevin Nash and Scott Hall pulled up at the NWO? Man, Bronny having the Hulk Hogan, like, black dye on the beard? Let's go, man. Let's set this thing off. I'm tired of the season ending in Denver every damn year, man. Let's roll.
So if the Bulls got the 12th pick, would you spend the 12th pick on Bronny James?
Why not? Why not? I mean, for years now, all I've been saying is that LeBron and Michael Jordan need to just go ahead and squash this thing and have the legacy kind of linked at some point somehow. You've done the number thing. Hell, I remember when there was a chance that he ended up here, and the Bulls and a couple other teams were the only other team. I think the Bulls, Cleveland, Miami, and one other team were the only teams to have more than 2 sit-downs with Bron. So, Bulls fans thought that there may have been a chance back in the summer. Was it 2010 or something like that? Why not? Why not come on through?
I don't know. Maybe you might be the only person from Chicago that I think would be happy about that.
am.
I think most of y'all would have took him when he was young, but when he get there now, y'all gonna hate. You be mad at him coming for Jordan's legacy.
No, Domonique. No. The Bulls fans.
Y'all too desperate.
Bulls fans. Domonique. 1998 is a very long time ago. So now it's the people like me who are having children who tell them, hey, this was the man back then. Now you want to see something? Go ahead and watch. LeBron score 23 a game at age 42 and then have his son come along. What we have witnessed though is what happens when you are the son of a great, right? Jeffrey Jordan went to Illinois. Marcus Jordan went to UCF. Both nice players, good play. Marcus was the better player of the two, but the expectations were lofty, and Michael had to.
That's the one. That's the one perspective that hasn't come up very often, though. Is like no one seems to care what Bronny thinks, and my first inclination is I guess that he's been comfortable with this whole, like, being LeBron Jr. and being in the shadow and stuff. Like, I'd be pissed if somebody drafted me in the first round this year, if I'm Bronny. But maybe he doesn't realize. Maybe he's too close to it to recognize what we all recognize.
I think he's finding out right now that,
But wouldn't you like be bothered by that?
So listen to how LeBron has talked about this thing this season especially. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he and his son have had a conversation, and he's allowed his son to be like, hey, man, so what's you feeling? How you thinking about all this stuff? And especially after the cardiac arrest situation, he's talked about this differently this year with, it won't weigh as heavily as people think it will weigh in terms of my decision-making. The whole Bronny is his own man thing now with the transfer portal and the draft. Like, we've seen it before where you got that specter that's looming large over you all the time, and all of a sudden you say, hey, man, I know I'm 17, I know I'm 18 years old, but these are big decisions. I want you to help me, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm doing what I think is best. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially the way that Bron has talked about it differently this year. The last 2 years previous, anywhere Bronny went, it seemed like LeBron was going to go. And whatever, the case may be, it seemed like he was giving him the best business advice, which he still is as his dad. But I feel like Bronny is starting to embrace certain things, and his father is kind of letting us in on those.
Yeah, and that's LeBron was on his show with JJ Redick and stressed how bad college coaching is and how he thought being in the NBA would be better for his development. I mean, I think he should transfer to UConn. Even if it doesn't mean he can play with his dad, play there for 3 years. If he actually wants to have a chance of being an NBA prospect, go get coached up. He's someone he's a role player.
Yeah.
It's hard for role players to make it in the NBA unless they win at a really high level at a college program. Yeah. Otherwise, role players trickle down from college stars.
So I don't know what's gotten taking his talent to stores. Is that what we're saying?
It'll be like right where the decision happens.
Taking my talents to an insurance company.
As long as he doesn't end up dating Larsa Pippen, it's a win for LeBron.
Man,
we don't talk about that here in Chicago.
Yeah. I'll tell you something during the break. Never mind. Anyway, something's weird about my brain that you keep triggering things for me to Google, Jason.
What's up?
And 1998 was a long time ago. And my God, was it a good year for hip hop?
Oh, golden year. Kidding me?
My God.
We had the Resurrection come out. We had the Love Movement come out. I think Equimini came out that year. Hard Knock Life. It was one of the golden years ever.
It's like the best pop culture year for sports, music, everything. Like this is the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf draft, the home run chase with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, the Jordan last shot.
It was all my freshman year of college. That's why I remember it so much. It was a great year.
Cal, 400 Degrees, Capital Punishment, Black Star. Shut them down.
Great year.
Money, Power, Respect.
Great year.
Gosh. Oh, poor Cannabis. He came out that year too. That was rough. Sad. Dark as hell is hot. Oh gosh. All right, let's get the hell out of here
before we just start listening to music.
just start naming albums and listening to.
And another thing about Frank Kaminsky.
My God, I will not stand for this Frank Kaminsky disrespect. All right, Jason, get out of here, man. I appreciate you so much, man. Also, y'all can check him out, obviously, on the Full Go podcast. Hopefully, I'll be on there again one day.
You and Charlie. I need Charlie on there. Charlie's got quite the following in the Midwest. I actually mentioned that I was going on your podcast, and the people in the bullpen of a certain persuasion were like, "Oh, that Charlie guy." I'm like, "Yeah, Charlie Kravitz."
The snack.
You already know.
I got the snack working out daily too.
I
got the snack working out daily.
He's turning me into a low-calorie snack.
We're gonna get him out of the streets. Get these viewership numbers up because the snack is getting fit.
He's out here. He's moving numbers.
All right, Jason. Appreciate you, brother.
One love.
All right, thank you, Charlie, for a great show. Thanks to all my great producers, Megan, Serafina, Kevin, Brian, and Cortez, too. Also, I love you, Paville. You're the best. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.